In this video, I'm going to be drawing a map of a dungeon located underneath the mysterious Wizards Guild. My hope as a game master will be able to run the entire dungeon just by looking at the map illustration. No description, no random tables, no words at all. Can I do it? Let's find out. So I'm drawing this map in Photoshop, and even though I'm using the computer, I still approach the process just like I would a normal map drawing on paper. I have the grid turned on just like graph paper, and I'm using a layer with the transparency turned down to simulate using a pencil. You know, it's not 100% black because I'm starting like I always do with this rough sketch. Okay, so here's some background on this dungeon. Every month I make a new tabletop role-playing game zine for my Patreon, and this month I decided to give myself a challenge. I'm filling up this zine with 8 connected dungeons that all have unique themes and fun, weird stuff going on inside them. But I want to try and convey everything with just images. So a wordless dungeon that GMs could run just from the pictures. That's the challenge. So you might have already noticed that the layout is a little bit strange. The dungeon is kind of split in half with a big border around each part. That's because this dungeon is spread across 2 pages. And because all of the drawing is important, I don't want anything to get lost in the margins. So that's another limitation on this map. It's got to fit nicely onto a 2-page spread. But really, the layout of this dungeon is pretty simple or straightforward. The walls are dividing rooms, and there are open doorways and some that are locked. Those will be represented by a closed door. And I'm very roughly sketching out what is going on in each room. Okay, actually back up a little bit. Even though the final zine won't have any writing in it, well, it'll have very little. There'll be a small introduction page at the beginning, but none of the actual dungeon maps will have writing going on in them. But I did some of my own behind the scenes writing, planning out what each of the dungeons is about. Most of them have 2 factions in them with some extra stuff going on. And I'm trying to make a little story for each of the dungeons, but also leave a lot open to interpretation, right? So my intention is when a GM looks over the map and takes in all of these little scenes happening, they'll start to form their own story in their head. And hopefully that means each person that runs this dungeon will do it entirely different. I think that's super fun and maybe just a cool side effect of this wordless dungeon experiment. Okay, I got to the point in the sketch phase where everything is filled in, so I know what's going on in each of the rooms. Now it's time to move on to the inking phase. Basically, I just make a new layer over top of the sketch layer, but this one I have turned up to 100% opacity, so it's more that clean black and white line art over top of the gray sketch. I'm thinking these dungeon walls will be stone, and I've chosen this sort of top-down but slightly tilted perspective. It's like a super flat, straight-on isometric kind of view, I guess. I don't really know what to call it, but really it's just kind of based on the old pixel art RPG dungeon maps, like Nintendo looking kind of stuff, right? And actually that's a fun little Easter egg I'm including in all the maps. Each one has one of the original NES Zelda items hidden in there somewhere. This one has the boomerang, and of course it's locked away, so the players have to search around and find the key to get the boomerang, and it'll be a different item like that on each of the dungeon floors. My idea is that each dungeon is connected but different, so you can kind of see where the hallways run off the left and right sides of the pages. This is actually the second dungeon in the zine. The first is a cave with a bunch of these hairy guys, and they're at war with these slimes because slime is no good for the hairy guys. In this map, you can kind of see where the river of slime leads into the bottom left, and these wizards that are all over this dungeon are using it to make their magical potions. The overall story for this dungeon is there's 2 types of wizards. There's the hooded ones and the pointy hat ones. And there's also this weird eyeball beholder thing. My hope is, as this time-lapse goes on, you can kind of figure out what's going on, and like I said, make up your own premise for what's really happening here underneath this Wizards Guild. The first 2 or maybe 3 maps in this dungeon are pretty standard, my kind of 1-page dungeon kind of maps, kind of adventures. But as the zine goes on and you flip from page to page, things get weirder and weirder. Without spoiling too much, the wizard's dungeon leads into this like alien automaton factory, and there's this fire swamp and a bunch of rat folk that have made an entire wooden skate park in one of the dungeons. There's the dog realm that's going to be a fun one to draw. I'm just having fun making a bunch of crazy maps, and I'm excited to see them all come together. Fingers crossed it'll be really cool when you can flip between them when they all connect up and link into each other. Okay, so I'm inking these scenes, and I'm keeping the actual drawing pretty simple, like little circles for hands and just, you know, lots of little icons and stuff, just enough so you can get a sense of what's going on. I'm really curious what you think about this whole concept. You know, I'm thinking that these little pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? Like, I personally think it would be really fun to look at a fully illustrated dungeon map and try to run an adventure straight from it. So let me know in the comments if you think that this map is getting there, if it's something you feel like you could run just from looking at it. Okay, now I'm adding a layer of 25% gray just to help give the map a little bit of clarity since there's so much going on. It's a fun way to add just a little more detail to some of these illustrations, like adding liquid to the potion bottles and spots on the beholder egg cluster. Yes, that's right, beholders lay eggs. Or, I don't know, maybe they're alien eggs that the wizards have summoned accidentally, or maybe they're just wizard eggs, or maybe they aren't even eggs at all. Instead, they're a super rare fungus that the wizards are growing to help them cast some kind of powerful spell. Either way, these wizards are definitely up to something. If you'd like to get your hands on this wordless dungeon zine, definitely check out my Patreon. The digital version will be available at the end of the month when I get all the drawings done. And if you sign up for the Legend tier this month in March, I'll ship you the physical zine once it's all printed. I'm really stoked at how things are turning out, and I think the printed version is going to be super, super fun, you know, flipping through all 8 of these interconnected dungeons that go from page to page. Let me know what you think of this idea, and if I was successful at creating a dungeon that could be run with just pictures. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!